Okay, everybody, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. This is for making sure everybody knows where they're supposed to be. This is track one, building the right team, and I'm Gabe Madison. I'm the Director of Community Relations for Thomson Reuters, and I have a great set of panel members with me today that I will let introduce themselves, but we're going to talk about, I'm going to be the moderator, and we're going to talk about how to build great teams or the right team, and I will let Kevin start and do a little intro of himself.
All right. So my name is Kevin Brown. I'm the CEO of Informational Risk, a startup from 2017 after a pretty lengthy career in the corporate life, working for large companies such as Transamerica, First American Data, as well as my own private company that we sold back in 2014. I exited corporate life in 2017 and started Informational Risk. And so very contrasting environments when it comes to staffing, resources, things of that sort. Being from a corporate life, got a lot of luxuries, a lot of people want to work for you. Come to a small private company, there's some challenges there, so hopefully I can share that with you today.
Marcus?
Hello, my name is Marcus Cooksey. I am the CEO and founder of Duke AI. That acronym stands for Developmental Understanding of Known Examples Using Artificial Intelligence. This is why we abbreviated to Duke AI. I have numerous years as a software developer. I worked in the corporate environment at Texas Instruments as a embedded computer science engineer. I recently was working on artificial intelligence, teaching vehicles how to drive, and I was over the China business unit. But I also had my trucking business that I started back in 2015. And so what Duke AI, and we'll get into that as we talk about teams, Duke is artificial intelligence software solution. And in the beginning, we were just me, and then I had a co-founder, and we'll talk a little bit more. But my background is I'm a techie, and I write code and I design boards, but I just decided that it was time for me to go out and do creativity in my own way and develop my own platforms.
Okay, so we're going to play off of that. So what was kind of your light bulb moment to say, it's time for me to break away and take my tech skills into my own world?
Oh, it kind of started when I when I founded my trucking company. But what led me to start my trucking company, I was working full time and started my trucking company, is we had a major layoff. And I don't know if you've seen the 10 Commandments, but that's what it felt like. It was like people were in the hallway waiting to know if it was their turn to be killed and laid off, and you saw people crying and then leaving office. I was like, that was the worst feeling in my entire life. And I was like, I never want to be in that position again where I'm at the mercy. My family, my livelihood is at the mercy of someone else. And that's when I started my trucking company. The light bulb moment came is when I was working full time and I came up with all these tools. Like I could track my drivers using GPS location, I could do dispatching, and I was able to do that while working full time. The problem I was having was my bookkeeping and accounting. I couldn't determine if I was profitable because the only thing that was available at that time was QuickBooks, and that required a lot of manual data entry. I was like, wow, it would be nice if I could just take a picture of my settlement statements, my bank statement, and everything is just, and I looked for solutions because I was doing artificial intelligence, and I thought maybe there was something like that for accounting, couldn't find anything. And then I started doing some prototyping, and then once I confirmed to myself that it was possible to do that on a small scale and as a prototype, I was like, I'm on to something.
Awesome. What about you, Kevin? What was your kind of light bulb moment for you to leave the corporate environment and to step out into your world?
Well, I sold a business.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
So, but regardless of that, my aha moment came a little bit later in the life cycle of developing a company. I had, being from the industry, the big data industry, I had multiple clients approaching me asking for solutions. However, they weren't sure what that solution looked like. They just didn't like what was in the market today. So when I exited, I'm a 50-year-old guy, I was going to retire, to be quite honest with you. And about 3 months into them, my wife tells me that I'm spending way too much money and we're not getting a check, so I better do something, right? So I joined an incubator called Collide Village Co-Build, And we're all located in the Addison Treehouse down the road here. And we went through a lean startup model. And what does that really mean, right? It means validating what I've heard on the street. So, people are asking, and what our business is it's for homeowner associations in regards to title and mortgage companies. So, a couple of facts: there's no national database of this data anywhere, right? So there was a big need in the big data market, right? So we basically went through the lean startup model, identified the value propositions, what the characteristics of the product was, and what we could charge for it, right? And at that point, I kind of had the aha that, hey, we got something here and we can move forward with it. Up until that time, it was just an idea, right? That needed to be validated. And we spent 4 or 5 months validating it before we even started the company. So that was really, my aha moment came a little bit later in the cycle.
I like that, okay. So when, Kevin, did you know that it was time for you to start thinking about a team? And what was going through your mind about the team? Since you come from corporate America, you said in your intro, kind of, you were attracted, people were attracted to the big name companies. Mm-hmm. So when you were faced with trying to create your team as a startup, what were some of your challenges?
Well, there's a ton of them, actually. I was fortunate enough, obviously I left a team that some of those people still wanted to work for me, so so I was able to leverage that. But I think, obviously you got to surround yourself with like-minded people that want to help the company succeed, right? They want to be successful themselves. And I think one of the biggest challenges, starting on going back to the word lean, a lean budget, right, is how do I attract top talent and without being able to pay them top wages? So a big challenge, right? So we've went down many avenues. And I know there's another question here I'll probably bleed into here a little bit, but I started looking at alternative sources and very bright people coming out of school, interns programs, college recruitment programs, those type of things, and decided, hey, I've got a couple of core people to support me, and we can train the others, right, and bring them up to speed very quickly. Now, that doesn't apply to all positions, right? There's some positions that are critical to your business, IT, for example, right? You need a certain skill set, and how do you find that? So we've looked abroad, offshore, nearshore. We've looked at interns, which we have 3 on staff now out of UTD that work for us every day, and we're training them, and they became very valuable assets to our company. So looking at this, outside of a corporate lot where everybody wants to work for you, because you got all the benefits, you got all the money, and hey, Thomson Reuters, for example. You come to a small company, it's a little bit harder to recruit. And I don't want to forget about the part culture, right? And I'm bleeding into other questions here, so I'll stop there. But
well, let me back up a little bit, because I'm wondering if the audience may have this question. When do you know that it's time for you to hire somebody else? When do you say, okay, this is my breaking point. I got to do something different.
Well, being a guy that plans pretty well, I have a ramp-up plan. From the day we started our business, it was a ramp-up plan. And it was more, a thought process we went through that says, okay, looking at key performance indicators in your business, and this might be as simple as how many widgets can someone do, right? And knowing that depending on the clients you bring to the table, how many widgets do they have, will help you, decide when do I need to staff appropriately, if that's not the type of business you have, right? Now, on the techie side of things, and we're building this national database, very onerous, very hard to get data. We went to the data science community. We went to the IT, groups, and we met a lot of people in a networking environment like Addison Treehouse. Matter of fact, my CTO had a business in Addison Treehouse, and I hired his company and subsequently converted him to our payroll, right? Awesome. on a very alternative type compensation model, right? That he was willing, and it included some equity, right? So people like it when you're a small business and you can, and everybody wants to protect equity, right? I mean, no one wants to give up their equity. But if you're going to be successful, you have to outweigh, is 98% of the pie better than 100%, or, if you get the right talent to support you, right? So, looking for those resources, understanding, and then really, putting metrics around all those things and understanding what can someone do, how long does it really take, measuring and measuring and measuring again, and then that will help you decide what your staffing needs are as you go forward.
Marcus, I'll ask you around the same questions, like how did you know it was time for you to start looking at additional team members? I mean, you were saying that you were pretty much running things and on a full-time basis, still working on a full-time basis. You branched off, and now you are onto something different. Mm-hmm. When do you realize I need to bring on other people?
Yeah, so my situation was somewhat, I don't know if it's unique, because I was still working full-time. I needed the money to fund my startup. And so while I was developing at home at night, I realized I couldn't sustain that type of tempo and that type of workload. So it was at that moment that I reached out to a friend of mine who actually had his own startup, and they were focusing around data science, cloud-based solution. And I brought him in and explained to him what the problem was. And then he basically made the connection between what I was doing and what he had already started on. And we began to collaborate together. And so he then eventually became my co-founder, right? And so he provided a critical piece of IP that I needed, besides just the optical character recognition. Optical character recognition is, I think we know what that is, but there were some other elements that he added. So he provided an additional, I guess you could say, he covered the gaps in knowledge, as well as providing the other components that I needed to kind of help build the whole product, right? And he was doing it full time. And so then after that, we recognized that his time was limited, my time was limited, and I still needed to prove it out a little bit more. So we hired another individual who was at a low rate. And the problem is that there's a trade-off. I think Kevin talked about this. You don't have a lot of money, but you need to get the best talent. How do you do that, right? But there are resources out here. UTD was, especially on the tech side, that was my biggest concern. And there are resources out here, and you can find those students. And so we just started, because what happens is the engineers, if you know anything about engineers, they come, and because I used to do this, they learn from you, they build up their skill set, and then they leave. And it's very difficult to maintain that. So what we've started to do is create a pipeline of talent, so that once this person gets the skill sets and he goes on, we can supplement that with someone else. But one of the things, because there are certain people that had certain value that you don't want to leave, and like Kevin kind of touched on this a little bit, you almost offer some incentives to retain them. And so some of those incentives are equity in the company or culture or various other things. And so I think as we've built our team, I think we've added some value that even a Fortune 500 company can't provide.
Okay. So that's kind of high-level strategic thinking on how you were able to understand it was time for you to build a team. Can you tell us about some of the tools, resources, technology that you may have used in recruiting, onboarding, orientating your team members?
Yeah, so for me, I never submitted a job posting, a listing, because I learned from my trucking business that can be a dead-end experience, right? It really is. I know that's wrong to say, because there's a lot of them out here. You've got ZipRecruiter and so forth, but it just never landed us any leads. And so I realized that the best way to find drivers was to get on the ground and go out to where they are and start talking with them. And that you're doing two things. You're almost interviewing them, and then they get to see you. And the same was true with on the technology side. I went to my co-founder and I was like, hey, let me know what you have available. And he went to UTD, started interviewing students, talking with students. And what was interesting is what we would do is that we would throw these data science meetup camps, is what we used to do. And we would talk about some of the problems we were doing, and students would come up and was like, man, it's interesting. I mean, what can I learn? And then they were eager to kind of join us. So that I feel like that's kind of a alternative way to really get good people without spending a lot of money and wasting a lot of time.
Okay, that's good. What about you, Kevin?
Well, a lot of different channels, right?
Uncover every.
I think I would like to, leverage organic growth when I say that. Based on your culture, everyone's a cheerleader for your company. They're, referring you to their friends. They are, they're talking up that it's a great place to work, and that's a way to get frontline people, right? That's one way. Obviously, going through the traditional online channels, Indeed, Monster, some of those type of things. And I used to think that probably wasn't the most effective way. Of course, that was some HR department going through all that before and getting me people in the corporate world. But, some interesting statistics here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. There's 7 jobs openings for every 1 person, right? And I posted a job just recently, a $15 to $20 an hour job that in 6 hours I got 218 resumes, right, on Indeed. So it was highly effective, right? Of course, it takes a lot of time to go through 218 resumes, right? So we had to break that down and organize that in such a way that it was effective for us. So there's some science around that. It's also an art when it comes to interviewing and the like, but some science to begin with. Do they meet the skill sets? Do they have previous experience? What's their job history? You can weed out all of those 218 pretty quick, right? And then you do come up with a qualified candidate pool, and you go through your interviews. And I think it's important that you as a small business, that they completely understand your goals as a business, right? And what they're stepping into, right? And even if you're a business and you're in a co-working space like Addison Treehouse, hey, it's not an office. You show up there to do an interview, you're like, what the heck, They have a back room back there with some tables set up, right? We're still able to attract people because of culture, because of opportunity, because there's many younger people and people that just haven't had an opportunity in life, and going into a startup or a small business gives them the capability of learning not only the job skill set that they're being hired for, but other things, and get the opportunities to, explore accounting functions or something else they may be interested in that they wouldn't have in a traditional bigger company.
Awesome. When you think about some of the technology you may be utilizing to either vet your candidates or to actually do complete the hiring process, are there any technology or tools that you would share with this group that you're utilizing, or maybe not the name, but maybe the structure of the platform that you would say that's been helpful for you all creating your teams?
We when it comes to building the team, I haven't utilized a lot of technology, right, to be honest with you. We go through a very regimented hiring process, however, with a phone interview, then a face-to-face interview. And so there is a system, if you will, approach to trying to select the best person for the job. And then obviously following that, it's really important that you define what those people are going to do, right? And they know exactly what they're responsible for, and that you're giving them constant feedback and things of that sort. So that's when, and I can throw out a couple of names, something like payroll or time tracking, those type of things. Used to be a big business, right? Well, there's tools online now that help you manage all of that, right? And I use a system called Gusto, and it's just one of many online that helps me manage all my payroll, right? And it does all that back office, what's the taxes, all that stuff. I don't have to think about that. I just have to put in the hours, and it takes care of everything. And they're complemented by a time tracking system called Deputy. Pretty easy to use. Every one of my employees can clock in with their cell phone. I have GPS tracking, so I know where they're at when they clock in. So it makes things a little bit easier. Now, we're pretty flexible. So, I might have someone that run across town for the afternoon, drop off a FedEx package. Well, they're not at the office to clock in and out, so Hey, they got their phone, clock out when you drop off the package, right? So those type of technologies are available today in the market, and it just helps you as a small business person help better manage that whole overall relationship, right?
Good. What about you, Marcus?
Yeah, for me, I am somewhat less regimented in that sense because I am a traditional developer and I know the cycles of developers, and it's not a 9-to-5 job. It is, so we actually have a work from home day. So we leverage the fact that our solution can be available anywhere, which means that you can actually develop anywhere. And so I try to incorporate that, and hopefully as my team grows and my company grows, that we'll do that. We'll have you pick a day that you work from home, and then you work from home. It's just the nature of what I know engineers. Now, salespeople, I think we probably have a different standard on how we operate with them. And so for me, in terms of technology now, I didn't use any technology for like recruiting or anything like that. Okay. But there was technology in terms of maintaining employees, like payroll, as well as benefits. So this is the first time that I had actually gone out and provided benefits and medical benefits to employees, and I was like, right? And so I wanted to look professional, so I used a solution called TriNet. And I tell you, when I worked at Texas Instruments, we had like a portal where you could log in, you put in your time, and then payroll, and we look just like that. And my employees, they go through there, they put their time in that they've taken off, they can select their benefits and so forth. And I'm like, this is alleviating a lot of stress. And so, as my team grows, knowing that there are technological tools out there, especially software, that kind of alleviates a lot of the administrative functions. I'm still looking for something to help me with a few other administrative tasks that I'm doing. So, yeah.
Maybe something that you invent.
Yeah,
Okay, so a question for you, and Kevin, you started to kind of allude to this. Do you all think building a team is an art or a science, or maybe both? Either one of y'all.
I'll start. I'm going to say it's a science, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay. We figured you would say that, but okay.
That's why I said I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why. So, in science, whether it's computer science or if you're doing chemicals, a lot of people think it's science because there's a methodology. No, it's experimentation. And for me, it's experimentation. It's like, what chemicals do I add to get the right balance to either one, recruit this person, then two, determine if they have the right temperament? Because you don't know. Now that we've done we've had a few iterations of this over 2 years, we know what that profile looks like. But there are other things that I was never aware of, and being the CEO and the founder, you understand the technical parts about your product, but there's an HR element of it. And sometimes I find myself being a father to people, being a disciplinarian to people. That's, this goes quite contrary to, and so now I'm starting to learn, you look for it, but like they say, beggars can't be choosy. I'm a startup, so you can't look at every little thing. You start figuring out, okay, what things we understand. You're going to see the limitations in that person. When I was at TI, we got the best. Your GPA had to be over 3.0. You had to have all these metrics. I don't have that luxury to do that. So now I say, okay, what are the deficiencies? Do they show the capability that they can be groomed and learn? But one of the things I look for is hunger and desire. I know this is wrong to say, but I look for people who have desperation. And you need that from a startup.
Let's call it grit.
Desperation.
Grit. Well, see, grit, yeah, desperation is like, wow, if I don't, if this doesn't succeed, because I'll be honest, that's my, I have grit, right? But I have this thing like right now, this desperation and grit. I put everything in this, and if it doesn't succeed, my hope, but I need everyone else to have the exact same. And so my team members, like for example, one of my engineers, they updated the website without even telling me. Awesome. And so that's what you need.
That's awesome. So you are also, in reference, describing your culture that you created.
Yes.
It's a culture of grit, a little bit of desperation.
Yes.
What else would you say about your company culture?
Company culture is everyone owns something. And when I say own, meaning you are the gatekeeper. And I think there's something in meaning, even me as the CEO, I can't just override you. You basically tell me this is what we're gonna do, and you're the owner of this. And I think that creates that sense of I have a say in this company. Whereas when you work at a big company, you're pretty much, at least for me, you're dictated to. You really don't have full ownership, and you work in relation to orders that have been commanded down. So that's one element is the sense of ownership, and then the other one is called openness. And I've had 2-hour conversations with people where they were just telling me about their personal problems or whatever. I can't do that forever, but we're gonna have to get an EAP solution. But I want that to exist, where you don't have to call a hotline to do that. Where you just, that's part of what you're doing. I've had people cry, people, but I think people have issues outside of just work, and if you can address those, then they'll be more productive. So.
Kevin, art or science, or both?
I think it's both. I think the mechanics of posting jobs, hiring people, those type of things, it's definitely kind of scientific approach in my mind. I'm also a Six Sigma black belt, so everything's a process, right? But it's certainly an art to select the right people, keep them engaged, and recognize when they're not the right people, and they're costing you money or impacting your growth or your business, right? And being able to deal with that quickly, and that is certainly an art. And so I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest with you. You take a very scientific approach and maybe weeding out people based on selection criteria and those type of things, and then when you get to the interview part, now it's very much, and to your point, right, it is kind of trial and error, or looking at someone for skills that they may not possess today but have the ability to possess in the future, or the desire to be more in life, right? So if you're hiring, and it really depends on the roles you're filling, right? If you're a techie, probably a different idea there. You got to have some basic skill sets. You got to come to the table with the grit you talked about, right? If you're hiring frontline people, $10 to $15 an hour, right? What are you looking for in that person? Well, I can tell you, I'm not looking for a one-dimensional person, right? Not in a small business. If you want that, you better go to a big company and all you do is touch this piece of paper all day, right? In my business, you need to do a lot of stuff. You need to touch this paper, you need to answer this phone, you need to go get me water, whatever, right? There's a lot of stuff going on, right? So you want to be able to utilize those people to the best of their skills, and that creates a culture within itself. When you're giving people the opportunity to learn new things all the time, and even in my own career, I started at a corporate office out of a warehouse, for goodness sakes. And I stayed there 13 years, and the only reason I stayed there 13 years is because every one of my coaches and my mentors said, 5 years, jump ship, go get another job, you'll make more money, jump ship, But I stayed 13 years because I had opportunity, I learned new stuff, I got promotions, right? And that's what I'm trying to build in the company we have now, is everyone has the opportunity. I don't care where you started in the company, what role you're in, you have the opportunity to be what you want to be, but you have to get involved, you have to be that person with grit, with desire, and that's an art to find those people. Everyone will say they have that, but figuring that out is the art, right? So I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay. Talk to us about your company culture.
I don't have any really. Work hard.
Everybody has one, whether they know it or not.
Work hard, make money. No. I try to involve everyone in all decisions, right? We have team meetings on a regular basis. We're growing very rapidly right now, and many of you that work with me at the Treehouse know that my people are fully engaged, and they're doing a lot of different jobs, right? Decision-making process. They're part of our system developments. They're part of our decision-making processes, right? We're going into new clients, new products, new regions. They play a critical role in understanding those things and bringing it to the table, so they all get projects in addition to their daily job assignments, right? We do try to be as culturally friendly as possible to meet the expectations of the younger generation. And I don't even call that millennial anymore, because that's starting to bleed into the whole entire workforce, right? So the expectations millennial has about being, flexible in time. I don't come to work, I don't have a set schedule. I had to change my thought process a lot, right? And that's about listening and understanding what they need, right? So I think culture, we set the baseline, but you're very right. Based on the people you have surrounding you, they set the culture, really. Me, I'm here to set a baseline. I want everyone involved. I want, we're going to have fun things. We do team meetings, we do team outings, we do all those things. But it's really about the people you hired that create the culture.
You guys are private. Y'all are back in y'all own little area back in the tree.
I made it that way.
That's what I'm trying to. I was like secret. I would say secretive.
So let me ask you, have you utilized your culture to recruit your team members? Have you used it like as a base point for?
Well, to be quite honest, I think the answer is no at this point. Again, I think as we continue to develop as a company, that will be more prevalent. There are some things I kind of shy away from, open workspaces and some of that kind of stuff. It's not a bad thing depending on what size you get to, right? But we're negotiating leases on 2 places right now because we're graduating from the treehouse. We got too big, which is a great thing. But that's a challenge as well, and trying to find space that suits people with recreational opportunities, lounges, and all the other things. So we want, that's as important. Amenities are almost as important as the space itself nowadays, right? Do I have somewhere for employees to go? Do I have somewhere where they can go work outside of the workspace if they have, need quiet time, those type of things? And I'm very flexible that way. But, I don't think we really said, hey, come work here because, right? Not yet, but we will.
Okay, Marcus, what about you?
I do, because I tell people you come to work at Duke AI because we're working on something groundbreaking. It's revolutionary, right? A lot of companies say that, but we are. When we look around that's in the industry, no one is doing what we're doing. And so what does that mean? Yes, you're gonna have to learn new stuff. The answers are not out there. But the thing is that you will be a subject matter expert industry-wide. Some of the things that we're doing, we're setting standards and laying groundwork for patents that could potentially be industry standard for what we're doing. So and most engineers that I know, they want to be part of something that's great. They want to be part of the next Facebook, right? And I always tell people, you can go to Facebook and you can just be employee number 10,000 or whatever, but you can come to Duke AI and be employee number 10, 5, and doing something groundbreaking. We have an exit strategy. You want to be part of that, right? It's going to be good money for you going out, and then it's good experience. So, and then I always try to use myself. I used to recruit at TI, and I think what I try to do is show my personality, because this is the kind of corporate culture you're going to get. I come in every day. If you want to be, let's see, if you want to have a fun environment, right? If you want a CEO, if you want people that are, kind of, modern in the way they think and have the fresh approaches how they do it, you want to come here. And I tell them, I say, because I've been on the other side and I know what it looks like. So I think that's the value that has helped us to kind of recruit people. I'm still trying to figure out for salespeople. It's
a very different thing.
They're a different thing.
Yeah. So my last question that I feel like may help the audience in growing their business. What are some misconceptions that are out there about growing your business? What are some things that people think this is the way that you should go, and you're like, oh no, please don't do that? Anything that you could advise them on?
I think a few things here. So even me, super planner, strategy is important, and having a strategy is important. But that strategy has to include a flexible component, right? You can't say, I set out a plan, and I'm gonna stick to that plan, whether it's failing or not, right?
That's it.
You have to be able to adjust your strategy based on market conditions, customer feedback, competitor challenges, those type of things. And although you sat down and you had this great strategy, I'm gonna grow my business, I'm gonna start more locations, I'm going to get the biggest clients in the world, reality is the strategy has to be flexible. And so I know a lot of people that set a strategy and if I lived on this strategy and I follow this roadmap, I'm gonna be successful and I'm gonna grow. I would tell you 8 out of 10 don't, because they're not willing to change their strategy and be flexible to the market conditions, right? So that's what my big misconception.
Thank you, Kevin. What about you, Marcus?
To go along with what Kevin said, it is strategy, and I'm not going to elaborate more, but what I'm going to tell you is read. There's one book I always tell people to read, is Lean Startup. There's a book, and you heard Kevin earlier talking about they were using this Lean Startup model, and that is a very incremental way on building your product, and that's from the day one. That is how we built our business, and even today we do things in small fragments, and so we build something, send it out, get the feedback, and we don't try to build the whole thing, go into like a stealth mode, and then get feedback, and then no, we do it. It's like every week we're doing something. So I would say read that book as in terms of something that's going to be helpful, because it defines the entire process. But then the other common misconception is that it's necessary for you to have, a lot of money and a lot of loans and so forth like that, and VC capital and all that stuff like that. You think you need that. Believe it or not, some of you have individuals in your network who are looking to invest in a business, right? Don't, when you start pitching, don't forget to pitch to them. You should actually have a separate type of pitch deck for people who I call are in your circle. And these I call it Kickstarter, because I've not had a VC funding, but I've gone to my network. So that's a common misconception. Yeah.
Kevin, last.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about Lean Startup for a second. It's not really building the right team necessarily, but it helps establish the groundwork for it, right? So if you're not familiar with Lean, there's a couple of tools out there that might help you, and it's called a BMC, or a business model canvas, and there's a VPC, which is a value proposition canvas. The BMC is probably most helpful from a business planning perspective. It is a one-page dashboard, if you will, on what your company, your business plan, right? It's categorized by who your clients are, what kind of sales channels you might have, what kind of resources you need, right? That helps you kind of figure out what kind of team do I need if I know these things. Understanding, flexibility. So how many of you, just by a show of hands, how many of you have a business plan? How many have a business plan that's more than one page? How many have a business plan that's 15 pages? How many times has the business plan changed since you started? Right? So using the BMC one-page concept and working it through a scientific flow really helps you set the stage. It helps you be flexible. It helps you understand market conditions. You still live by it just like you do your business plan. It's just a much simpler tool. It's something you put on your PC, look at it every day, and know this is what I need to do. This is how things have changed. I moved this. How does that change my value proposition? Well, how does that change my resources, right? It helps you just keep that stuff tracked as you continue to grow as a company. And it also helps you define the resources. So, and this one thing, the site you go to get those things is Strategizer. It's free. So I encourage you to go out there.
Last thing, the common misconception is you'll have more free time. That's a lot.
Yeah,
that's a lot. I used to think I'd play more golf after I stopped working full time right now.